Welcome back to another D2 build video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the ultimate arc defense, or arc protect, if you will. Yes, that's a pun on architect. Dad jokes. Enjoy. Anyway, moving on. So, this build I ended up using in both my solo flawless dungeon run for Ghosts of the Deep, and I also tested it on Lightblade, the first GM of Season of the Deep, and both went absolutely fine, with the solo flawless in particular being fantastic for the final boss, as it just rolled over everything defensively and offensively, as you'll see on screen moments here. So, I'm going to go over the build first. Here is the mod select screen thing, and we're going to go over it. First, we got, obviously, Stormcaller for Arc. We have Chaos Reach for the super, but you could opt to use Tickle Fingers if you'd like. Chaos Reach is more so for just the final boss in Ghosts for additional damage. Healing Rift, Standard, Burst Glide, or whatever jump you want to use. If you don't use Burst, you're a weirdo, just saying. Then we got Chain Lightning for the melee. Pulse Grenade for the grenade, but technically speaking, it doesn't matter what grenade you use because you're always going to eat yours. We'll get into that in a second. For aspects, it's Electrostatic Mind and, like mentioned, Arc Souls. Electrostatic Mind is helpful for just getting Ionic Traces, and those Ionic Traces making your abilities come back even faster, even though you'll be on the juice with this build already, but it's helpful, and you don't really need the Cha-Cha Slide in PvE. Then we have Spark of Shock for jolting targets with your grenade, even though you're going to be eating it 95% of the time. Then Instinct, while critically wounded, you jolt targets with a burst of energy. Resistance for more resistance. Who could have seen that coming? And then Spark of Haste. You have greatly increased resilience, recov, and mobility while sprinting. So for the armor and mods, I will say take this with a grain of salt because this is specifically built for solo final boss in Ghosts. If you want to copy it particularly for that, feel free to just copy everything you see on screen here. I will also leave a dim link in the comments / the description below. While you're there, by the way, like, share, subscribe. It does help the channel. Much appreciated. Sign up for more build videos, boss meme videos, stuff like that. Anyway, hashtag ad is done. So the one thing here that matters is Getaway Artists. And for everything else, you can just interchange the mods however you'd like. You know, whatever siphon you want. Maybe you want surges on your boots instead of insulation, recuperation, and scabs, and things like that. But Getaway Artist is the star of the show. So we're going to go there in a second. So here we go. Getaway Artists, by holding E, or whatever your grenade is, you consume your grenade, and then it turns it into an autonomous Arc Soul turret. What this does is, first of all, it makes you amplified for free, instantly, no effort needed. And second of all, it makes it so your Arc Soul turret is a 5 burst instead of a 3 burst. The 3 burst is what a normal Arc Soul is if you do not use Getaway Artist, if you didn't know already. On top of that, I believe it also gets aggressive tracking with Getaway Artist as opposed to the normal Walmart version, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But the key here is Amplified, which makes you instantly damage resistant based on the artifact mods, which I'll get into in a second here. But then it also makes our Arc Soul literally better than the normal version. So that's why Getaway Artist is included in this. You could run Fallen Sunstar and things like that if you'd like for your Arc build. That's a totally fine exotic, and I'm sure there's other choices as well that are fine. But for this particular build, damage resistance to the video game, this is what I went with. For weapons, I'll keep it brief. The kinetic and the heavy slot can go to whatever you'd like based on your playstyle or maybe your favorite weapons, whatever it may be for activity. For the energy slot, anything that's arc-based though, so Ghost, Lightblade, the Disgraced GM that will be up later this season, any Fallen Strike basically, or Hive Strike, or Lost Sector, anything of that sort that has an arc threat even, you can run Risk Runner. And in fact, I would suggest you run Risk Runner because the Arc Conductor perk says, while taking arc damage, this weapon becomes more powerful and resists incoming arc damage. So the weapon gets better, you get even more incoming damage resist for arc on top of your armor and the artifact mods that I'll mention again in a second here, and also kills extend this overcharged state, which basically means, hey, the trash mobs that you just got shot by and then you just killed all of them in like 3 seconds, yeah, now you can shoot the champion or the boss next to them and you'll have unlimited ammo for a brief amount of time. Oh, also, your Arc Souls are shooting them the entire time as well, so that target's probably also going to die. Isn't that great? For artifact mods, first I want to state that obviously this will change depending on the season when you're watching this, so this will be applying to only Season 21 / Season of the Deep, but I do want to also state that the build will work without Season 21 and its mods. This is just kind of like the cherry on top, or the icing on top, whatever the expression is. Anyway, let's go over the artifact mods. Now, you have 5 of them that you can use this season. First up, Shock and Awe. I recommend using Arc Final Blows. While you're amplified, summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. More jolting, definitely a plus. Then we have Amped Up. Stay amplified longer while you are an Arc subclass, which you will be. So essentially, as soon as you eat your grenade for Getaway Artist, you're amped, and then you stay amplified for longer, just instantly. Then we have Thunderous Retort. Grants bonus Arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified. Lasts until the end of the super activation. Again, you are instantly amplified thanks to Getaway Artist, so your Chaos Reach will always be live with this. Or even if you're on low health, you pop Chaos Reach, and then you get damage resistance because you're in a super, and you can heal up while killing your enemies with your Chaos Reach. Then we have Electric Armor. Gain damage resistance while amplified, which for the 18th time is free on eating your grenade. And then finally, we have Lightning Strikes Twice. This is the only one I don't really recommend. I think the other ones are more important, but this isn't a bad mod by any means. After throwing an Arc Grenade, which you won't be doing too often, but you do occasionally, gain increased grenade recharge for a short amount of time. Arc Final Blows extend the duration of this benefit. So you could use it. It's not bad. I just went with the others as my preferred route for just the simple synergy. As far as the gameplay loop goes, essentially, you get into a room with enemies. You will eat your grenade first to get everything going. At this point, you'll be amplified and good to go. Shoot your Risk Runner if you have it on, and then your turrets will be active. The thing to look out here is you'll have a Sentient Arc Soul turret timer on the left side of the screen, and when it gets low from your 20-second threshold, what you want to do is not let it run out, but instead pop your Rift or eat another grenade. If you don't have another grenade, then definitely pop your Rift. The reason for this is if you let your Arc Souls run out and then pop a Rift, you would get the baby Walmart brand version and get your 3-burst Arc Soul with less tracking. However, if you pop your Rift as your Sentient one is running out but still has a timer on it, you will get a refresh timer on your Sentient Arc Souls instead, so it'll go back up to 20 seconds and give you the big boy version still. So essentially, you keep the loop alive through your Rift, and then by this point you will guarantee 100% have your grenade back, and then as your timer is running low, once again, you can eat your grenade or pop your Rift to keep your loop going. And as long as you're in this state and fighting enemies, you will always get one or the other back, like in a daisy chain or maybe even a seesaw, and you will have one of them to keep your chain going until you want to stop or all of the enemies are dead. Now, if you happen to not like Risk Runner or you just have an activity where there's not a lot of arc and you want to replace it, that's totally fine. I recommend in its place to at least have something that's crowd control oriented in your build. So if you are not doing like a damage check boss type of activity, you could run machine guns like Fixed Odds, Commemoration, Thunderlord, etc. Or if you're running a DPS weapon in your heavy slot, opt in for things like Agriceptor, which has insane crowd control, probably the best in the kinetic slot in the game by far. And then there's, of course, things like Forbearance, Harsh Language, Deafening Whisper, or the new Stasis Way from Jail, whose name I cannot think of because I still don't have a good roll of that. I am sad. Anyway, the point is, Way from GLs, Agriceptor, machine guns, things of that nature for that good crowd control to fit well with your defensive build. Finally, just some mod suggestions in case you don't want to use a solo build for the dungeon and want to use this in other activities. We have things like Proximity Ward, which is giving overshield on finishers, and then we have Bomber, which reduces your grenade cooldown when using your class ability, which will be all the time, as well as Distribution, reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets, which again will happen all the time. Your boots will pretty much matter whether you want to do a DPS check kind of thing with surges, or you want to just stick to defensive-oriented things, where you can continue to use things like Insulation and Recuperation for health regen purposes. For your chest piece, it just comes down to two things. Do you want reserves, or do you want to stick to defensive position? So if you want reserves for a boss-related thing, then you pick the reserve brand that you want, Void, Solar, Arc, etc. for your weapon. And then if you want to stay defense-based, then you go with your resist mods based on the activity, whatever it may be, Void damage, etc. If it is Arc damage, though, remember that you can use Harmonic Resistance for 1 energy instead of using Arc Resistance for 2 energy, because, well, that adds up, and you might want to run something else in your slot, like, you know, Resilience mod, that's 4. So you can't go Resilience, Arc, and then Concussive, because that's too many points. Instead, you can do Resilience, Harmonic, Concussive, and then a different mod, and get the same result. That's all I have for today. More builds on the way for all 3 characters, not just Warlocks, as well as, like I mentioned, guides, boss fakes, raid bosses, dungeon bosses, exotic missions, solo flaws, all that nonsense. If you like seeing that stuff, subscribe today. They'll help the channel. Much appreciated. But until then, catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.